Hey, you want to take a picture by the car?
No, thank you. Who are you talking to? Because I know it ain't me.
You tried it.
Girl. Oh,
Give me a purse.
no, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what he was trying to say.
No, sir.
Oh my God. Me too.
He's acting like we were. Hello, everybody. I just want to say one thing. No charges were dropped. I already made a video about it. It's posted. I really don't want to get into it. I mean, the way I'm seeing it, a charge is like RICO violation. The actual statutes, right? Violated the RICO statute through racketeering conspiracy, trafficking, interstate commerce because of prostitution. All of the counts on the superseding indictments, none of those have changed since the most recent one. So the charges are the same. The charges are the same. To prove RICO, I already did a whole video on this. I'm not getting into it, okay? But I'm not arguing with people. No charges were dropped, okay? To prove RICO, there's certain things you would expect to see, certain things you have to prove. One of the things you have to prove, if you want to get somebody under the RICO statute, one of the things you have to prove is a pattern of racketeering activity. A pattern of racketeering activity. This is a large category of behaviors. It's activities. It's a bunch of different types of things that could be a racketeering activity. Some of these things could be like, bribery, extortion, obstruction of justice. Sometimes it's unaliving other people. These are kind of things that you would expect to see in an organized criminal ring or whatever. Okay, so the government was asked, and so was Diddy's side. Both sides have been asked by the judge to tighten it up with those long ass closing statements. 4 hours each, please. Can we streamline? He asked both sides. So the government only needing to actually establish a pattern of racketeering activity, which means 2 acts over the course of the conspiracy. I'm pretty sure they might have proven some things that were easier to prove than that Kid Cudi arson, for example. Okay. So yes, they are no longer going after the arson predicate as a legal theory of the case, but they never charged Diddy with arson. Therefore, the charge of arson cannot be dropped. Did they charge him as in like accuse him and he did an arson? Yeah, they did accuse him. So perhaps they're withdrawing their accusation, but a charge has got to be under a statute. And all the statutes, all the counts remain fully intact. That is to say, you can, and I believe they did, prove a pattern of racketeering activity without needing arson, without needing to even prove a single kidnap. What about that $20,000? You only need 2, y'all. The $20,000 changing back and forth with Cassie's mom. What about the texts with the don't tell her where I am, the obviously concealing the truth from people in order to what? Get his way, continue the purpose of the racketeering conspiracy, which the government has said, the feds have said, the purpose of his racketeering conspiracy wasn't to traffic drugs. No, it was to get his sick sexual fantasies off with, by whatever means necessary. And therefore, a criminal organization sprung up around him. Did they prove the full RICO? I don't know. I kind of think they did, but that's totally different than proving just a pattern of racketeering. A pattern of racketeering activity is only one of the pillars holding up the RICO castle. Okay, so there's one right here, a pattern of racketeering activity. What needs to be proven for that? Two racketeering activities like bribery, coercion, kidnap, arson, unaliving. There's other stuff I'm missing. trafficking is one, actually, but these are two different crimes as well he's being charged with. Okay, so no charges were dropped. No charges were dropped. Just please with the fake news of it all. And I don't even blame people for thinking they were, because TMZ is reporting it like straight up plain as day. Charges dropped. Exclusive. It's like, what? What? The jury instructions were edited and limited so they weren't 16 hours. No charges were dropped. It's like there's other ways to say it. Like, they're no longer going after the kidnapping angle as a predicate, as a pattern. And I understand that doesn't make as clickbaity of a headline for Harvey Levin and them, but I just feel like there's a certain level of like, charges weren't dropped. That's not true. And now everybody's saying it like it's true. I don't know. You know, they don't put me in charge of anything. Okay. Yeah, they totally presented it as fact. And I do have the two different paperworks from the two different sides. Both of them last night presented, and what today's court date is about, let me tell y'all. What they both filed last night with the court, and what today's court hearing is about. The jury is not here today. They are going to be going back and forth all day over exactly this, the jury instructions. Okay, this is called like a charging conference. The charge to the jury is just like another way of saying, like, what is the script? What is the script that the judge is going to read while he is telling the jury before they go back there and do their deliberations? Guilty, not guilty on these 5 counts, these 5 different charges. Before they do that, the judge has got to tell them what exactly what's the rubric. It's like you want to grade a paper and you don't even know what's the rubric. So the judge is going to read a script, and it is very serious, like the exact words that he uses. And it's going to take probably a while for him to read it. And it's like, you can imagine it gets kind of complicated. With trying to have a lay person jury, or even if they were all lawyers, sit there and try to remember everything that happened. What are they even supposed to be judging on? What are they supposed to be? What are the facts? What are the elements? So the judge is going to read it all to them. But before that happens, the two sides get to say their piece on what should be in and what should be out. And of course, because it's the Diddy trial, or because it's any trial at all, there's a lot of arguments that go into what is this script going to be. In fact, they let the jury stay home today and take a day off so they could basically devote a few hours to it today. So that's what they're here to do today. I see these 2 letters of last night. Look, Inner City Press said, especially the U.S. Attorney's Office letter, have resulted in a lot of confusion. So I'm answering as much as I can. Meanwhile, I'm putting written questions to the UN spokesperson this morning. While some are saying this is just U.S. streamlining requested by the judge, yesterday, Diddy's lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, called aiding and abetting ST statute unconstitutional. And then the U.S. dropped that theory of liability. See, that's a whole nother thing right there. And I told y'all in that video that I made this morning, it just came out before this one, that you have to also think about this stuff strategically. Let's say they dropped a charge. Even if they dropped a charge, it doesn't mean what Harvey Levin said it meant. It could. He clearly has a lot more access to these people and a lot of this information than I do. But the U.S. did not drop a charge. They dropped, like Inner City Press said, a theory of liability. Now, this aiding and abetting ST I will admit, one part of this thing, I really don't understand quite exactly even what the underlying statute is, because he was just charged with the ST in and of itself. So who was he aiding and abetting? Like the other people? Was he aiding and abetting himself? Strategically, it doesn't even make sense to have him aiding and abetting. Let's take it out of ST and let's put it into like burglary. Burglary. Okay, burglary. If you if criminal A, burglar A, hamburglar, goes into someone's house, burglarizes and leaves, who aided and abetted him? No one in that story. Now, let's say somebody drops him off, is the lookout, is the getaway car, they're sharing the spoils. That's aiding and abetting. You're helping that. Whoever was the driver was helping the hamburglar. So it's aiding and abetting. But in the first scenario where it's like, hamburglar's enterprise and it's just all his business and no one is around and no one is helping him, then I don't see what the aiding and abetting would be. I do understand this is a RICO, so maybe it was a ring, but like, why do they even need to charge him with aiding and abetting sex trafficking whenever he's being charged with trafficking in and of itself? So if they're going to have to start spending public money, making constitution arguments to keep some underlying statute at play, who cares? The only reason that they are even saying this stuff is to establish a pattern of racketeering activity, which, like I said, I believe they have already done without having to even get in the, see, because what Diddy likes to do and his team likes to do, and they're very good at it. They're very, very good at it, is get all off in the freaking weeds and lost in all the other details instead of what Diddy did and why he's responsible. If there's a way to make Diddy a victim, they do. If there's a way to make Diddy seem like he's just this innocent lily of the valley, they will. So if I'm the prosecution, I'm cutting every single thing that I don't absolutely need to prove the charges. I think they've proven other stuff without any kidnap, any arson. Again, go back to that. I don't know if it's technically bribery or extortion, but where the $20,000 or else we're going to release your tapes, and the mom, Cassie's mom, went out, refinanced her house or whatever to give Diddy the 20,000. The text message exchanges, the lies, the threats alleged. I think it's the pattern of racketeering activity is like, it's not the whole case, y'all. It's just a pillar. It's just sometimes, y'all, discretion is the better part of valor. You have to remember this is a type of warfare. Just like chess, you got to let some of your little pieces fall to win. You're not going to keep them all. So I have no issue with the government dropping these things. It makes sense to me. What the issue with it is, to me, is that it's being framed in the mainstream media and therefore throughout all the commentary channels and things as if this is a big win for Diddy. And listen, y'all, there have been wins for Diddy, but this just isn't. It's just obviously a strategical, like, okay, they want to argue about the Constitution all day. Fine. We're not going to even deal with that statute now. That doesn't mean a charge was dropped. He's still, now, if this would have happened with the RICO, if they would have said, we're not doing RICO anymore because that's unconstitutional, we don't even need to prove RICO now, that would be like a charge was dropped. Okay. Look, 2 letters last night. Oh, they pushed this thing back to 2. It's not even starting now. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Okay. So we'll still just, still have some stuff to catch up on here. 2 letters last night, including the changes, just to emphasize, not dropping charges. Thank God. Inner City Press knows he's a lawyer. I did not know that until recently. Y'all knew he was a lawyer too. So Rabbit is like, why was it pushed back to 2 p.m.? I don't know if it actually was pushed back to 2 p.m. I guess it was because they're saying both kind of saying it like it was. So I'll need to check in on that. But he's like, maybe given the 2 letters last night, including the changes, just to emphasize, not dropping charges, but yes, dropping several theories of liability. In the U.S. letter, it makes sense for both sides and the judge to be up to the moment for the conference. The charge, but then it says the government is no longer planning to proceed on these theories of liability, not we are dropping the charges. It's just like, I feel like it was on purpose. I feel like it was like to confuse on purpose. Okay, I'm going to Pacer to see what's going on with like the 2 o'clock thing. Or maybe if I just go to Inner City Press, like main page. U.S. letter remove charge. It hasn't removed the charge. Trial participants in the know have told Inner City Press the charge conference in the case is pushed back to 2 p.m. even though it's not on the docket. Okay, so let's just look through those pages. Let's look through them since we have time. And we'll actually see what it actually says. And y'all can tell me yourself, was a charge dropped? Because look, it's all just public. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pull up the document. Okay, so this is the Diddy one. And it was submitted yesterday. We submit this letter in further support of our requested edits to the court's proposed jury charge and to elaborate on some issues referenced in comment bubbles in our requested edits and objections. So this is like they were going back and forth with drafts, version 1, version 2, here, I'm sending to the court sends back, the court sends here, the court sends there. Okay, so now Diddy's side wanted to put in some edits. Okay, this is a 12-page long document. They wanted to, basically they're arguing that they don't even think that this Racketeering Act 3 even holds up muster. And then there's the ST instructions generally. The defense strenuously objects to the government's proposed additions to the ST instructions. So you see how it's kind of like, where are the instructions themselves? I don't think they're on the docket. But after Diddy put this document in, there was some other stuff too. Racketeering, the court should not charge the jury on this statute at all because it is unconstitutional. Okay, Racketeering Act 6. So under the racketeering, he's charged with violating the RICO statute. There's some acts of it. So the predicate acts, the racketeering activities, she's saying this specific statute is unconstitutional. She makes a lot of other arguments, but let's pull up the government one. Let's pull up the government one because this is where all of the shenanigans have come from. Same day, but this was filed after Diddy's. The government respectfully writes regarding its requested edits to the court's proposed jury instructions. The government understands the court's desire. Okay, what's the first sentence? The government understands the court's desire for streamlined instructions. Okay, so the judge asked them, both sides, to cut it down. With that in mind, right? Because whose desire? The judge, the court's desire. With that in mind, the government has suggested ways to streamline those instructions. Okay, so we have some ways we might be able to streamline. Specifically, the government has removed instructions from the charge related to instructions. Removed instructions from the charge relating to, from the charge, instructions from the charge, not removing the charge. If you were removing the charge, it would say, we've dropped the charge, we've removed the charge. From the charge. So there's still other stuff going on because there's still a charge there. But there was instructions relating to kidnapping or attempted kidnap under California and New York law, attempted arson under California law. So he wasn't even charged with arson. It was just, or he wasn't even accused of arson. It was just attempted, but this was considered, I believe, to be a racketeering activity. And they are removing instructions about aiding and abetting trafficking. The government is no longer planning to proceed on these theories of liability. So instructions are no longer necessary. The government has also attempted to simplify the language relating to count 1, a proposal, as explained in the government's comment bubbles, that the government hopes not only serves the purposes of streamlining the instructions, but also will avoid any confusion as to the operative agreement for count 1. Okay, so they also have changed the language. Not only have they dropped some instructions pertaining to certain things, predicate acts or racketeering activities, but also they have attempted to simplify the language relating to count 1 because they want to streamline the instructions, but also to avoid confusing anybody as to the operative agreement to count 1. Okay, so then as trafficking and forced labor instructions. Okay, so this is one place where the feds and Diddy side disagree. It says, while the government has taken seriously the court's desire for brevity, that means we're taking you seriously, Your Honor, that you want to have us be brief and concise. We hear you. We hear you. We're with you, but we still strongly believe that certain limited additional instructions, okay, the government wants additional instructions, even though the court desires brevity. So now look at this strategy, okay, just to push into why they might have dropped it for reasons other than Diddy's innocent and is going to walk away free. Your Honor, we know that you want us to be short and sweet and to the point. And for that reason, we have actually sacrificed some of our theories of liability. We're just going to let them go. But please, we really want to keep this part in. Could it have been a little bit of a scratch your back, scratch mine to show cooperation, corroboration? That could be a possible additional variable. Could be, I don't know. But the government is like, look, listen, Your Honor, we take it so seriously that you want to keep this short and sweet that we already like dropped some other stuff. And we still hear you that you want this to be short and sweet. But listen, we really still strongly believe that there are still some certain additional instructions that you still do need to add in. And it would just not be in the interest of justice if you don't do it. Specifically, the feds say on the charges of trafficking and of forced labor. The feds are like instructions, which are regular. This happens regularly, Your Honor. This happens often. It wouldn't be brand new. These are instructions which are regularly given in ST and forced labor trials in this circuit. They're necessary for the jury to adequately understand the law, Your Honor. Each one of these instructions reflects established case law. We have to tell them the whole story. How the law is applied, Your Honor. They are all also directly relevant to key issues in this specific case. In addition to all that, if you don't give those extra instructions we're asking you to give with respect to the trafficking and the forced labor, we, the government, has serious concerns that the jury may misunderstand the applicable law for both charges. If you don't let the jury hear the full story of how this law is normally applied, and it's exactly on point in this case, Your Honor, then the feds, we have really serious concerns that the jury is actually going to be confused as to how to apply the law in this case, which will not result in a fair trial for anybody. And this applies to both charges, both ST and forced labor. The government says these charges are extremely complex legal concepts about which jurors may have a preconceived notion. And those preconceived notions also might be wrong. And so for that reason, Your Honor, please, we have to put in a few extra things here and there in the forced labor and the S trafficking instructions. And as a consolation, Your Honor, we've gone ahead and got rid of the kidnap and the arson. Ain't gonna hear about that from us. We'll get rid of it. I did just have a thought that could actually end up being bad. Like, let me just write it down. I'll tell y'all later, because I don't want to get sidetracked. And if you're wondering, my opinion, I don't really think they really fully met their burden to prove arson. But I think kidnap, they probably could have. But I think they're trying to get these extra instructions in here because otherwise they're not going to be able to prove the whole case. And you'll see what I mean, I think, as we get to moving forward. And actually, I'm really very happy that the court is not starting until 2, because that's going to give us time to get through this letter and kind of have an idea. At least I'll be able to have an idea when they start court, what's going on a little bit more, because like I already went through it. Like you can see my highlightings and stuff, but explaining it, like when you have to teach something or whatever, like explain it to the best of my knowledge, y'all. I mean, I'm doing my best. I don't really know anything more than the next person. Okay. All I'm doing is reading stuff, but it's like helping me to kind of understand it even more thoroughly so that when we get to the actual hearing, it's going to be like, okay, yeah, that thing we read about, this thing, that thing. Okay. So long story short, the government wants in this section that we are reading right here, capital Roman numeral I, number 1, ST forced labor, they want extra instructions. Like the judge already gave a little rough draft and the government's like, no, Your Honor, like you have to put these extra sentences in or else it's going to be a fiasco. And then they're saying their reasons. The jury is going to be confused. These are complex legal concepts about which jurors may have preconceived and mistaken notions. The government, the feds, have listed the precedent for each of these instructions in its comments section. Okay, so I don't know if this was, I don't think it was. The comments, I don't think are public. I think these are things that they've been doing super secret or whatever. But I can go back and look after we finish this. I don't know. This is the most recent one that was filed. So let's just start here because this is what they're going to be this is kind of the operative document. And then the Diddy one we'll circle back to. The government has listed the precedent for each of their additional instructions they want in. To avoid repeating the law and precedent here, the government limits the below largely to just providing the government's reasons why, based on the particular facts and issues in this trial, that these following additional instructions are necessary. Okay, so one more time. The arguments below are to provide the government's reasons why, based on this particular case, this particular trial, issues here, why we need the following additional instructions. So here are the following additional instructions. Again, this is with respect to both the S trafficking and forced labor charges. So the first requested instruction by the feds requested instruction 1 is something to inform the jury in some way that earlier consent to do something is not determinative of whether they were forced to do it in a later or a separate time, a different following time. If that doesn't make sense, I think it will start to clear up as we move forward, so just hang tight. The feds say, due to the particular facts of this case, Your Honor, we, the government, believes that it is imperative, it is very important, that the court, Your Honor, please inform the jury that prior consensual sexual activity is not determinative of whether a victim was trafficked. As this court is well aware, the facts of this case involve instances of trafficking of Jane and Cassie. They follow instances. These instances happen after previous instances of consensual sexual activity. The government, the Fed, says this is a topic that is likely to be discussed extensively by both parties during the closing arguments. So it's going to get brought up, Your Honor. And because it's going to be hounded on, we need to just remind people and put it in the actual official jury instructions that earlier acts of consensual activity doesn't mean somebody couldn't be trafficked later on. Doesn't mean they were, but it doesn't mean they necessarily are precluded. And the feds are saying, and on top of the fact that it's going to be brought up in closing arguments by both sides, it is also Second Circuit law that earlier periods of consensual sexual activity do not preclude a finding of trafficking as to later activity involving a victim. And this is from the Keith Renier case. And this is Mark Agnifalo's client, if I recall correctly. In that case, the Renier case, I think that's Nexium, it stood for the proposition in this particular circumstance that it was recognizing that ST encompasses acts that compel a person to perform or to continue performing commercial sexual activity. Emphasis added. Also, another case called United States versus Marcus from 2010. It stands for the proposition that, quote, the fact that Jody's enslavement arose from her initial participation in consensual BD blank blank activities does not require a contrary conclusion. So somebody could end up being enslaved even if they first consensually did kinky stuff. The feds say the same is true for the forced labor component. The government's forced labor theory focuses on 4 victims. Who are the victims? Cassie, Jane, that's in regard to the freak-off participation. And then with regard to the forced labor under employment, we have Mia and Capricorn. Similarly to ST, Cassie and Jane's prior consensual activities do not preclude a finding that later non-consensual acts happened. Same thing goes for forced labor. A victim's initial willingness to perform a certain labor doesn't preclude the possibility that the victim's continued labor may become forced. Nor does the fact that Mia and Capricorn willingly took jobs with Diddy preclude a finding that at some point they were forced to work. The government says to avoid any confusion on these points and to ensure that the jury applies the correct law to the facts of this case, the government respectfully requests that the court include such an instruction. Okay, so what was that first thing that they wanted? The first requested instruction, Your Honor, please, we know you want to be quick and brief and fast and all of that, but please, you have to put, this is number 1, you have to put it in there, that just because any of the victims previously did something consensually does not mean that they cannot have been later forced to do that same thing that they previously did consensually. This applies to every alleged victim in the case. And it also, this is the government's argument, and it also applies equally with the ST allegations, the SUL stuff, and the working conditions stuff. So what is their second request? The second thing that it's like, Your Honor, you got to backspace something else off that page and put this in the script. It just has to go in there or else. Is this concept that payment is not determinative. Just because somebody got paid for something don't mean, insert the blank. So let me show you. Let's get more into their reasoning. You'll see what I mean, I think. The government respectfully requests that the court instruct the jury that S trafficking and labor and payment to the victim for that conduct are not mutually exclusive. For S trafficking, this instruction is crucial because of the fact pattern underlying Jane's trafficking by the defendant. This is alleged by Diddy. As Jane testified, around April 2023, Diddy and Jane entered into a multiple-year, quote, love contract under which Diddy agreed to pay Jane's rent in the amount of $10,000 each month. While that contract was in effect, and in part as a result of the terms of that contract, the government alleges that Jane was trafficked. Because jurors may be under the mistaken impression that someone cannot be coerced if they received compensation, the government requests that the jury be instructed as to the law that payment alone doesn't preclude a finding of guilt as to S trafficking. So you can S traffic somebody even if you paid them. You could pay somebody, you could be giving them money, but it's still S trafficking if all the other things apply. And this is under the case law, the precedent set in the United States versus Rivera from 2015, affirming convictions despite victims' statements that the defendant had paid them and they earned more money with him than they would at their next best employment option. So even though they were making money, they were still considered in the Rivera case to be trafficking victims. Because the forced labor victims also received money or gifts from Diddy, it's important that it's important to instruct the jury that payment alone does not preclude a finding of forced labor. You have to do this, Your Honor, to prevent confusion. They're going to be confused. As noted above, Diddy paid Jane $10,000 a month rent payment. And similarly, he also paid for Cassie's rent and other expenses. In addition, as employees, Mia and Capricorn Clark were paid salaries by Diddy's company. The jury may not intuitively understand that this payment doesn't preclude a guilty finding on forced labor. So you could be you could still be guilty of violating the forced labor component of the statute, even if you paid the people. Okay, now we're going to move on to the third requested instruction. The first was, recall, just because they consented to something earlier doesn't mean that they can't have been trafficked today, or doesn't mean they can't have been forced to work and do labor on other occasions. The second instruction was payment for services doesn't mean you weren't S trafficked, nor does it mean you weren't forced to do labor. And then the third requested instruction is on that cumulative conduct. The government's proposed additional charge language instructing the defendant that they may consider, instructing the jury, I think is what they meant to say, that they may consider a defendant's cumulative conduct is necessary in this case, Your Honor, particularly necessary in this case. Why? It's so that the jury can understand what it can consider in assessing whether Cassie was coerced. Throughout the trial, the government has introduced evidence not only of threats and harms directed at Cassie over a multi-year period by Diddy, but also Diddy's threats and abuse of others, of which Cassie was also aware. Under the law, the jury may consider all of this conduct in assessing whether a victim was coerced. He cites a 2020 case called United States versus Purcell, viewing defendants' cumulative conduct in holding that government had met its burden of proof. So this is basically saying you got to tell the jury, Your Honor, that They're allowed to think of Cassie's state of mind as looking at the grand picture, the bigger picture. Like Cassie would have known about Diddy's previous alleged threats against other people, against her, previous acts of violence, cumulatively, all of his conduct taken together. And you should instruct the jury that they're allowed to do that. When evaluating, we have this Wilkins case that says when evaluating if a defendant exerted coercive force over an alleged victim, juries are directed to evaluate the totality of a defendant's conduct toward the trafficking victim. Okay, so the totality of Diddy's conduct toward Cassie. This would include any threats or specific instances of past violence that may have created a, quote, culture of fear, such that the victim's conduct was rendered involuntary. However, the government says, the feds are saying, if you don't give this instruction, Your Honor, the jurors may mistakenly believe that they are confined to considering a narrower category of evidence and deciding whether the elements of ST are met. And the government is saying, like, under the law, it's already like well established under the law, they like actually are allowed to take that into consideration. And Your Honor, you're like, you kind of like have a job, like have a responsibility to tell them that they're allowed to take that into consideration because it's the law. The cumulative conduct in the forced labor instruction is also important for Mia and Capricorn. Both of them worked for Diddy over long periods of time, and during both of their employment, Diddy was violent and threatened them, allegedly, according to their testimony. The cumulative effect of the violence and threats can all be considered by the jury in assessing whether whether either was forced to engage in labor or services for the defendant. Okay, so the cumulative effect of the violence and the threats can be, all of that can be considered by the jury in assessing whether there was a forced labor charge, as well as whether the conviction, whether he should be convicted of forced labor. They can evaluate and analyze and consider the cumulative effect of all of Diddy's behaviors whenever they're trying to figure out forced labor, but also when they're trying to figure out ST. Without an instruction of this nature, Your Honor, the jurors may feel they are constrained to consider only whether a particular act of violence or a particular threat resulted in forced labor. Okay, what is the fourth extremely necessary thing that the feds are arguing just needs to be in these jury instructions? Now, why are we reading this right now? If you're just getting here, they have pushed the start time of the little trial day off to, it's going to start in about another 55 minutes. But in the meantime, I'm reading through what they're actually going to be arguing about in these arguments. So it'll give us a good primer and a good preparation for what they're going to be talking about and arguing about. So I'm reading the government's right now. This is the infamous document that has people saying that the government dropped charges, which is like not a true statement, but whatever. Okay. So the government, the feds have said, Your Honor, we do need at least, a few little more sentences added in here. And it's stuff that relates to the ST and the forced labor instruction that you're going to give to the jury. There's some stuff that just simply has to be added in. The first thing is that just because somebody consented to do either SUL activities or like work for Diddy before on a consensual basis doesn't mean that they can't later have actually like been trafficked, like labor trafficked or S trafficked. We also separately, Your Honor, we just need you to please instruct the jury of the relevant existing law of the land over here, that just because somebody got paid to do something doesn't mean they weren't S trafficked or labor trafficked. Your Honor, as well, the third thing, please, can you just put little sentence somehow, some way that the jury is allowed to consider all of Diddy's conduct and what conduct Cassie specifically would have had knowledge of, because the cumulative conduct is something that the jury is allowed to consider in determining whether someone was coerced. And they are saying that or the feds are arguing that Cassie was coerced. And fourth, we need an instruction, Your Honor, on on physical restraint. Based on the cross-examination of Jane and Mia, and this is where they start coming for Teenie and them. Based on the cross-examination of Jane Doe, and Mia, the government respectfully requests that the court briefly instruct the jury that physical restraint is not required to establish trafficking and forced labor. As this court is aware, one of the key instances of trafficking of Jane, so one of the key instances of the trafficking of Jane Doe that the government intends to discuss at length in its closing arguments, and which the government anticipates the defense is also going to address in closing. This involves Diddy's assault and subsequent freak-off involving Jane in June 2024. Now, Your Honor, as you know, during cross-examination about this incident, the defense counsel, that's Diddy's lawyers, extensively questioned Jane about times that she could have escaped this date, asking Jane, quote, "Does the back gate have a capability for you to leave the house?" Asking whether she had other family in Los Angeles. Moreover, during yesterday's Rule 29 motion, Diddy's lawyer, Alexander Shapiro, again argued that Jane could not have been trafficked on this date because she could have left. Okay, so that's what Diddy's lawyers are arguing. She could have left. How are you going to traffic somebody when they could have left? Well, the government is saying because of Diddy's lawyers' lengthy cross-examination on this point, and because I now expect that they are going to argue these points at closing, in order to avoid jury confusion on the issue, Your Honor, the feds, we're requesting that a very brief instruction be added on this point to make it clear the legal import of this evidence. Similarly, and another thing, during the cross-examination of Mia and in the Rule 29 argument today, the defense, Diddy's lawyers, repeatedly argued Mia could have left her job at any time and is therefore not a forced labor victim. But that is the incorrect rule under the law. Shapiro, I don't know what's wrong with her, but she's wrong. That's what the feds are saying. We're back to this Rivera case. This case affirmed forced labor and ST convictions, even though victims once left the defendant but later returned. So just because somebody leaves somewhere and then later comes back doesn't mean that they can't be a victim of ST. The government, the feds say the instruction is really needed to correct any misimpression on the jurors' minds that Mia had an affirmative duty to leave. Okay, so I think this one's actually really important because it's already been established under law, apparently under the Second Circuit law, that someone can be a trafficking victim even if the door is unlocked and they can leave. Okay. I mean, that felt kind of like something that I already knew intuitively, but I'm glad that they're able to point to case law that says that. You know, Judge Subramanian doesn't want to be the one making and establishing case law. I think he wants to make every decision based on somebody else, you know, and you are supposed to do that. You're supposed to look and see if the decision has been made before so that there's similar decisions being made across the circuit and across the federal judiciary. Okay. But I did like this part right here and think it was kind of funny that they finally just couldn't hold it in any longer. I mean, it did take them all the way till requested instruction 4. But it's like, during cross-examination about this incident, Diddy's lawyers extensively questioned Jane about times she could have escaped on this date. And this is one of the key instances of trafficking Jane. So they're like, look, Your Honor, Teenie got up there, or whoever it was. I think it's Teenie, but I don't remember who it was. whoever it was got up there and basically cussed Jane out in the legal sense for not just running out the front gate barefoot, down to the nearest relative's house or whatever. But like the government is saying, like, it's already well established law that just because someone could have escaped or did before escape and come back doesn't mean that they're not an ST victim. Okay. So can we at least tell the jury that, since Diddy's lawyers wants to get all up there and act like that's not already established? Yeah. And they're saying we need the jury instruction to correct any misimpression in the jurors' minds that Mia had an affirmative duty to leave her employ. Okay, so now they're not done. They're like, Your Honor, we know you're out of room. We know you're out of space on your page, on your word count script. But listen, you have to add this other requested instruction, number 5. Respectfully, please, we request that you just clarify. And this one I think is actually likely to be granted by the judge, because this one, and I don't know, y'all see me get predictions about this stuff wrong all the time. So, I mean, I'm just taking a little guess, but this, I've also heard a lot of the Diddy bots and a lot of the Diddy trolls coming out and talking about, like, what did Diddy receive? Did he receive anything? Did he receive anything of value? Did he receive anything of any value, for the ST, for the commercial purpose or whatever? Well, he did get that $20,000 that one time from Cassie's mom, but he apparently sent it back. So does that count as receiving a thing of value or not? But the government is like, whoa, hold on. Before you even go that far, he don't have to have received a damn thing of value. They're wanting the court to give a specific instruction to the jury on the count of trafficking, having to do with the, quote, thing of value and whether or not Diddy needed to receive something of value. The government respectfully requests that the court add a single sentence to its script. It's just one sentence, they're saying, to the charge on trafficking, to clarify that the defendant, see the charge on trafficking, right? Charge, that's one of the charges. It hasn't been dropped. Okay, good. To clarify that the defendant, that's Diddy, doesn't need to be the person who receives the thing of value from the act. The government believes that this short instruction is necessary because there is a particular relationship between the parties here, and we think there's a potential for jurors to be influenced by preconceived misconceptions about trafficking. We think that the preconceived misconceptions about trafficking might not comport with the law as it will be explained to them. They cite this Weinstein case. Congress noted that trafficking in persons is not limited to the industry. A short instruction on this point is needed to clarify the proper scope of the statute. Okay, so the thing of value is just for a commercial purpose. Okay, so the way that the laws are like divided up is the feds are really not supposed to have like willy-nilly control over our lives. We're really supposed to be like, living in the state. This is all like basically illegal fiction at this point, but this is what it's supposed to be like. And so you have to start at the what it's supposed to be to get to where we actually are today. So what it's supposed to be is like we each decide and choose which state we live. Again, supposed to be. This is like the ideal, ideal world of forms land, okay, outside the cave that we are in. If you know, you know. So what it's supposed to be is all the states are kind of like, in a union together, and then they kind of each have their own little laws. And if you don't like it in a state, you can go to another one. That's how it's supposed to be. Then there's supposed to be certain like minimum things that we all kind of, all the states, the whole union, or whatever we're all in agreement upon. Like maybe, don't kill people or whatever. I don't know, whatever. But then little by little, the feds kind of start saying they have the right. They have the right to enforce laws within the boundaries of a state, because whatever, fill in the blank. Now, one of the reasons that they claim that they have the right, the feds have the right to impose statutes, criminal convictions, prison upon people within the sovereignty of the state of state's boundaries is if you didn't stay within the sovereignty of the state. If you took your ass out and went to Ohio and then back to California and then you went to Miami and then you went to New York and all the way you were trafficking and pandering and pimping and drugging and everything else, then you didn't stay within your state borders. You were going all over the place. Now, which state's going to prosecute? They all could at the state level if they want. The feds could, if they want. Why? Because it crossed interstate lines. Now, that might not hold a lot of water to you. Might feel a little bit iffy. And it felt iffy to other people as well. And so you get this whole other progeny of case law, which eventually develops and is very strong today, which is if something affects interstate commerce, when you hear the word commerce, just hear like the cash register, cha-ching. Interstate commerce, that's another one of those times where the feds are like, oh, we can get involved. Okay. So if you're going all over crossing state lines and at the same time you're doing business or commercial acts, even if they're not legal, the feds, it's very well established. Which case is this? Marbury, Madison or something? Erie, Pennsylvania? I don't remember. But it is very well established that if something affects interstate commerce, so business or financial transactions happening over state lines, leaving out of the state, going to a different state, somebody in another state, that's where the feds have the most authority and jurisdiction. Now, this is being suspected and maybe postulated and thought about whether, maybe that is why some of these other predicate acts were dropped from the jury instructions, because they also have corresponding state laws, or the predicate acts that were resting upon state laws. The feds just didn't want to get into arguing about a state law. People are speculating that, and that could very well be what, one of the things going on. Nevertheless, it wasn't any charges being dropped. The charge of RICO is still standing tall. The federal charges are all standing tall. So I don't know about what charges being dropped. So he's still charged with sex trafficking. He's still charged with RICO, racketeering conspiracy. Still charged with the interstate transportation of humans for the purpose of a commercial S act, which is the institution. And he's still charged with labor, forced labor. Those charges appear to me to be standing strong. So unless there's something filed in the back end, wasn't filed public, I could be wrong. I could have not seen that because it wasn't public, but no charges dropped that I saw on the public docket. TMZ was talking about was these jury instructions. We're reading them. Did y'all see any charges dropped? Or does it just look like they're just asking for jury instruction sentences to be added to avoid confusion? That's what it looks like to me. The government requests that the court add a single sentence to its charge on S trafficking to clarify that Diddy need not be the person who receives the thing of value from the S Act. So if you can reverse engineer understanding why it is from a logical perspective that Diddy doesn't have to be the one who receives the thing of value, is because it's a federal law that is able to be enforced by the federal authorities and federal law enforcement because it affects interstate commerce. So there has to be commerce, cha-ching. Every time I say commerce, just cha-ching. There has to be commerce, but there also has to be across state lines commerce. So flying in Sly from Miami or Atlanta and flying in Jane from New York or California, and they're both meeting at, wherever else, then somebody's getting paid for it. Anybody's getting paid for it. Cha-ching, commerce. Box checked. So the feds are like, can we please instruct that it really actually doesn't matter if Diddy is the one who got the thing of value? Because I think they could argue that Diddy did get something of value. He got, his little kicks off or whatever. Hold on, are y'all cutting up in here? Okay. Shout out to Diamond Rainbow in the chat. Shout out to Oklahoma Outlaw. Who else is in here? Monica. Yeah, y'all be nice to them. And their links are in the chats too. If y'all want to support the mods, their links are all linked in the description box down below. Okay. So the government says we believe that we really need the jury to hear the instruction that the thing of value, like it's not Diddy doesn't need to be like getting 10% off the top. So we think the jury might have like an outdated perception or misconception about who has to receive the thing of value or whatever. Like really, like they might think Diddy needs to be getting 10% off the top or charging, getting sly for his services or something. That's just not true. We think they're going to be influenced by preconceived misconceptions about particular relationships between these parties, about what trafficking is. And we don't think the misconceptions are going to comport with the actual law. So we need you to tell them what the law is, because if you don't, then we're just going to be letting them do their misconceptions, and that's not the law. Okay, then they have a sixth requested instruction that a commercial S act need not occur. The government respectfully requests that the court add a very short instruction reflecting black letter law, the black letter law proposition that a completed commercial S act is not required for an S trafficking conviction. Okay, so a completed, that means like successful, commercial S act is not required for an S trafficking conviction. If you don't tell them this, Your Honor, the jury may incorrectly think that a commercial sex act must occur for a sex trafficking conviction. I thought that. I thought it had to be, well, no, I thought it had to be for a commercial purpose, which I thought that was a commercial S act. So let's see what they say. The phrase would be used to cause from the statute is not readily understandable for non-lawyers and lawyers either, girl, and may be misunderstood by the jurors as requiring that a commercial S act result. So maybe if it's just like, if you just attempted it. It says, second, this law is relevant to the facts of this case. For example, as Your Honor is aware, one of the specific instances of alleged ST, one of the specific instances of the alleged ST. Hold on, I gotta do my little color coding. One of the specific instances of alleged ST, which the government has focused on in this case, is the incident at the Intercontinental Hotel. This is Cassie, running down the hall and all that. The government has presented evidence that the defendant kicked and dragged Cassie in the direction of a hotel room where an escort was standing by and a freak-off had been in progress. A juror could reasonably find that even though a commercial S act did not occur immediately after the defendant attempted to drag Cassie back to the room, the elements of this count were otherwise met at the time. Okay, so I don't exactly know what the government is trying to argue, because that was still a commercial S act. Like, maybe they're talking about the timing it had to happen, like the violence and I'm not exactly sure, but I'll keep a pin in that one for when they're arguing about it in 30 minutes, and we'll see, if we get some more details on that. Okay, and then they want another requested instruction, number 7. I think they're getting a little carried away. I think they could have still kept it a little bit less. They could have kept it more brevity even, because they're asking 7 things on the ST and forced labor, and then they're just not even getting into the conspiracy yet. It's like, okay, the government respectfully requests a more detailed reckless disregard instruction. The government anticipates that one of the key disputes as to counts 2 and 4 will be whether Diddy had the requisite knowledge that Jane and Cassie felt forced, right? That's the mens rea. We're talking about mens rea. Did Diddy know? Because Diddy has to know. In order to be forcing somebody or coercing them, in order to be found guilty of coercing someone, you have to prove that the person who did the coercing knew that the person coerced, the alleged victim, did not want to do the action. The person, the assailant, the defendant, the person accused has to have had some kind of idea the victim didn't want to have the relations. If the victim doesn't have to necessarily say no and scream and run away and hit him, but that is one good way to know what the alleged victim's state of mind is. But there's a very important mental component, psychological, like a knowledge component, on all crimes, pretty much all crimes, not all of them, but almost all of them. And it requires, Diddy has to have known Cassie and Jane did not want to do it. Not every time, only one time. There only has to be one time, but the government has the burden to show Diddy knew or had reason to know. He had some reason to know. He went out of his way to avoid knowing. He said, I don't want to hear it. Something like, it's got to be some way evidence that Diddy knew Jane and or Cassie, respectively, didn't want to do XYZ account, instance of alleged so-called trafficking or racketeering activities. The government anticipates one of the key disputes as to counts 2 and 4 will be whether Diddy had the requisite knowledge that Jane and Cassie felt forced into engaging in these commercial acts. While knowledge is a term people use every day in their lives, it is likely to be readily understandable to the jury. The government believes the additional explanation is needed here. The term reckless disregard needs to be explained, a concept which non-lawyers are unlikely to have ever encountered. So meaning that's basically like Diddy going out of his way to never ever learn of any issues that Cassie or Jane had with this, right? Reckless disregard for the truth. Like Cassie said, I thought it was obvious that I'm down here wincing and gagging and 2 people's, using me as the potty. I thought it was pretty obvious that I wasn't into it, or whatever. If someone is saying, no, stop, and the assailant just doesn't, maybe if you hooked up that assailant to a lie detector, they could say, well, I thought we were playing a kinky game. I thought we were playing the no means yes game or what. He might really believe it, but that would be a reckless disregard. Like that's just unreasonable, The government does not give exactly what instruction it would recommend. So this one's another one that I'm kind of like shaky on, but we'll see more information whenever they start arguing about it in 30 minutes. Okay, so then the government moves on to the conspiracy instruction. The government's proposal also requests certain additional language outlining the law on conspiracy. Okay, so they want additional language having to do with what? Trafficking and forced labor. But they also want additional language outlining the law on conspiracy. This is that RICO, right? Because he's charged with racketeering conspiracy. The current definition is only a few sentences long, and the government is concerned that it may leave open too many unanswered questions for jurors, and this could result in a number of jury notes seeking clarification. We don't want them to be confused, Your Honor. It is imperative that the jury clearly understands the law of conspiracy. This is a legal concept that is not intuitive. We need them to understand this in order for them to correctly apply the law to the facts relevant to count 1, as well as to the narcotics conspiracy predicate. Okay, do you see how they just called that a predicate? That is what arson was, okay? That right here, boom, bing, ding, dang. Right here. You see it? You see it right there? Narcotics conspiracy what? Predicate. This is what arson was. This is what kidnap was. It was a conspiracy predicate. Okay? In order for them to correctly apply for the jury to correctly apply the law to the facts relevant to count one, as well as the underlying narcotics conspiracy predicate, conspiracy to traffic substances. I think we've had a lot of people come in here and say, yes, I delivered drugs to Diddy. Now, Diddy's side is going to say that was for a personal amount. Who gives a crap? You had your enterprise employees picking up illegal drugs, personal amount, personal time for you or not. Like, especially flying. Now, I think that might have been Christina Karam or whatever. That's one part too that I still feel like is like kind of a loose end. Like, where is Christina Karam? The government has carefully gone through conspiracy instructions that are regularly given in this circuit and has only proposed adding that language that is directly relevant to issues in this case. The government is available at the conference, that'll be in 30 minutes, to answer any questions the court has about why such instructions are necessary for the jury's understanding of this case. Okay, now we're on section 3, effect on interstate or foreign commerce. The government respectfully requests that the court add a short instruction in its discussion of the interstate commerce element of the racketeering conspiracy. Element, that's an element. Remember, it was just the whole little interstate commerce thing? That narcotics activity has an effect on interstate commerce as a matter of law. So it's already been established. Narcotics activity has an effect on interstate commerce as a matter of law. So it's not up to the jurors to decide. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, if you don't like it, I understand, but it's the law, so go change that part of it, because the jurors are not allowed to write laws. That's the legislature. That's who does that. So the judge is also not allowed to write laws. He's the judicial branch. So the same way, the judge cannot write a law or change a law, other than, they do kind of write laws because of precedent, and juries do too in that same way. They set precedent, based on what was established in the case or whatever. However, jurors' job, what they're really, their primary objective and what they are supposed to do is to look at the facts of a case, look at the law as it sits and as it stands today, and apply the facts of the case to the law or apply the law to the facts of the case, whichever way you want to do. Okay. And the law is, if there's narcotics activity, it is necessarily affects interstate commerce. Okay. So what they're trying to find, is it a fact that there was a narcotic activity? If yes, they don't have to decide, did it affect interstate commerce? The judge don't have to decide, did it affect interstate commerce either. It already has been established. The Second Circuit, back in 1997, has already found narcotics activity in and of itself satisfies the interstate commerce requirement of a racketeering enterprise. Okay, so you don't even have to show there was interstate commerce at all. If you got the pink Tootsie, if you got the Obama MDMA pill, interstate commerce already cha-ching for the purposes of the racketeering enterprise proof. This is a quote from that judge in that 1997 case that established this law, quote, of special importance to the present case. We have held that because narcotics trafficking represents a type of activity that Congress reasonably found substantially affected interstate commerce, the actual effect that each substance conspiracy has on interstate commerce is constitutionally irrelevant. Okay, so we're not going to get down into the, oh, it didn't have a lot of, well, this 2C was made in just made in my backyard, so it's not interstate commerce, and this other 2C, maybe it was made down the street, but this one, you know, you had one in your bathroom from such and such, and there was only one pill from out of state, and it don't matter. It affected interstate commerce. It follows that whereas here, the RICO enterprise's business is narcotics trafficking, that enterprise, this is still a quote. Okay, so in this RICO case from 1997, it established and stood for the proposition that as a matter of law, if you have the narcotics, that's interstate commerce, the feds are getting involved. They're coming into the state sanctity. Okay, yes, interstate commerce. They say, this is a long quote, but I'm going to read it, of special importance to the present case. Again, this is from the 1997 case, but it's now being used as precedent to apply to Diddy's case. So in that case, they held that because narcotics trafficking represented a type of activity that Congress reasonably found substantially affected interstate commerce, the actual effect that each drug conspiracy has on interstate commerce is constitutionally irrelevant. It follows that where, as in that 1997 case, the RICO enterprise's business was narcotics trafficking, that enterprise must be viewed as substantially affecting interstate commerce, even if the individual predicate acts occur solely within the state. Okay, so just the substances alone bring it into the feds' territory. And specifically through the interstate commerce requirement. Why is it required that interstate commerce be affected? Because that is an easy way for the feds to continue to exercise their jurisdiction. There's another case citing that 1997 one in the VCAR context, noting, quote, we have also held that where the racketeering enterprise's business is narcotics trafficking, that enterprise must be viewed as substantially affecting interstate. Well, okay, Diddy's lawyers are going to argue that his business was not substance trafficking. They're going to say, what have they been arguing? So this is one of the things to be on the alert, okay? Diddy's team is going to say they are citing cases where the racketeering enterprise's business is narcotics trafficking. I don't think they established that Diddy's business was narcotics trafficking. They have been saying over and over, wasn't this personal amounts? And while I do think that it seemed like a little bit much for personal amounts, I don't think that it was established that Diddy's RICO enterprise was in the business of narcotics trafficking. They probably could have had the opportunity. They had the chance. They could have even maybe had the evidence to try and prove something like that, but they never even tried. So I don't know why they're only presenting cases that allow in as a matter of law interstate commerce is affected, but only if the business of the RICO enterprise is narcotics trafficking, because that is not the business of Diddy's. If anything, it would be the bad boy. It would be the record label. Now, could it maybe be that Diddy was in the business of, record labels, and that's necessarily affects interstate commerce? Maybe, but they need to argue that. Maybe they will. Maybe they're going to. Noting in the VCAR case that the racketeering activity that satisfies the jurisdictional element, remember jurisdiction, that's what they're worried about. Like this is interstate commerce. It affects whether or not the feds have jurisdiction. In this case, narcotics trafficking is clearly economic in nature and has been found by Congress to have. Okay, so this is the strongest case they have right here, is just straight up the racketeering activity that satisfies the jurisdictional element. In this case, narcotics trafficking clearly is economic in nature. Okay, so narcotics trafficking is clearly economic in nature. This is the strongest to hold, to support their theory, and has been found by Congress to have a substantial effect on interstate commerce. So even if it's not the entire purpose of the racketeering activity or the racketeering enterprise. See, look, the enterprise's business is narcotics trafficking. Enterprise's business, the RICO enterprise's business is narcotics trafficking. So these don't help you because they're going to say it wasn't for business. It was for personal. So what do you mean his business? His business was record label. However, you do get this last little case right here from 2000. To establish jurisdiction, therefore, like the interstate commerce, the narcotics trafficking is clearly economic in nature. Okay, cool. So then they go and they cite this Taylor versus the United States case. This goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. So this is important because there's no higher court. This is the court. Found that interstate commerce element of the Hobbs Act robbery is satisfied if the government establishes that the defendant robbed or attempted to rob a drug dealer or substances or substance proceeds because as a matter of law, the market for illegal substances is commerce over which the United States has jurisdiction. Okay, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. They proved their point. They proved their point on that one. The Supreme Court said it, and they didn't equivocate. The Supreme Court said it. And not that long ago, 2016, they found that interstate commerce elements of the Hobbs Act robbery is satisfied if the government establishes that the defendant robbed or attempted to rob a substance dealer because, quote, as a matter of law, the Supreme Court said, the market for illegal substances is commerce over which feds have jurisdiction. The Second Circuit has not had the opportunity to apply Taylor to the RICO statute. It has held that Taylor applies to violent crimes in aid of racketeering or VCAR charges, and this contains an identical interstate commerce requirement. Further, at least 2 other circuits have applied this Taylor ruling in holding that narcotics activity satisfies the interstate commerce requirement under the RICO statute. So, okay. Other circuits have held it. So this judge kind of would be setting a little bit of precedent, though, for this jurisdiction. The market for illegal drugs constitutes commerce over which the United States had jurisdiction. The government provided evidence that YMM engaged in daily drug trafficking over a period of several years. It's a type of economic activity that has been recognized to substantially affect interstate commerce in the aggregate. Yeah, okay. So I think they proved their point. For that reason, courts in this district have also consistently instructed the jury that narcotics activity satisfies the interstate commerce element under RICO. So other courts in this same district have done it, Your Honor. So I don't know why you're not doing it. If you find that in the course of the racketeering activities, members of the enterprise trafficked narcotics, this element is satisfied. That's the proposed jury instruction. Interstate commerce includes the movement of goods, services, money, and individuals between states. Okay, interstate commerce includes the movement of goods, services, money, and individuals between states. Congress has determined that all narcotics activities, even purely local narcotics, even if you don't leave the state, has a substantial effect on interstate commerce. Thus, this is the instruction I think they want to give. If you find that in the course of the racketeering activities, members of the enterprise trafficked in narcotics, you may find this element satisfied. It is not necessary for you to find that a particular defendant knew the enterprise was engaged in interstate commerce. Okay, and then they're on the 4th section. Is about venue. The government respectfully requests that the court modify the instruction currently included in the discussion of venue, that ministerial functions and preparatory acts occurring in the district are insufficient to establish venue. Okay, so right now, the proposed jury instructions say this. They say ministerial functions and preparatory acts, ministerial is like paperwork, I think, and other preparatory acts that occurred in the district here in New York are not sufficient to establish venue. So basically it would be saying like, can we even decide this case? The circuit has held that the venue may be satisfied for S trafficking where a defendant contacts a victim who is located in that district for purposes of enticing them to engage in ST. First contacted her. This is like a precedent case where somebody contacted this girl using Facebook Messenger in the fall 2015. At the time, the girl was living in a residential treatment center located in the Southern District of New York. And this was for the purposes of enticing that person to engage in prostitution. Okay. And then the feds go on. Since the conduct in Walsh may erroneously be construed by a juror as merely preparatory, the government requests, please, Your Honor, that you modify this portion of the venue instruction to reflect the language in this other case. And we really want you to clarify that acts that are preparatory, like preparing for the criminal offense, and not part of the offense. So even if they were done in preparation, but they were not part of the of the offense. Okay. They want to just add this part right here, and not part of the offense. Because if you did preparation in one city for a crime you later did in another city, you should, I don't know, I guess they're saying you should still be able to have the venue there. I don't know why they're arguing over venue, truthfully. Okay, so then she also quotes this, whether the crime be continuing or non-continuing, venue is not proper in a district in which the only acts performed by the defendant were preparatory to... Okay, the inclusion of the term ministerial functions is going to be confusing. Because do we even know what this means? Ministerial functions? This could confuse the jury. And in any event, it doesn't appear to be relevant to the conduct in this case at all. Nor is the government aware of any circuit precedent for that portion of the instruction. Like, we need to get rid of that. That's a stupid instruction. Can we just delete backspace? So this right here, they don't want to add it. They want to take it out. They just want to take that all out, the ministerial function thing. And then the venue thing, they want to add this little piece. Okay, so then moving on to another issue that they are having and they want the court to address has to do with unanimity, meaning like they have to be unanimous. The government objects to the unanimity instructions for the ST and the Mann Act offenses. The government has been unable to find a single first S trafficking and Mann Act case where a unanimity instruction was given. We are concerned that the language as drafted is going to introduce error into the charge. We propose the following language instead, which is designed to reduce the risk of error and confusion. The intent of these edits, among other things, is to properly characterize what constitutes the relevant, quote, instance, and to make clear that unanimity is only needed for elements, not means. Okay, we'll get into what this means. They're going to explain it. Affirming an instruction to the jury that to convict did not need to conclude unanimously as to how he violated the statute, specifically where he either harbored or participated in, because harboring and participating alternative means, okay, holding that, okay. So I think it'll just be easier to try and understand what they're even trying to say if we just read through their proposed instructions. So let's do that. But let me finish reading this here. So let's, are means and not elements. Force, fraud, and coercion are alternative means. Okay, so force, ooh, this is really important. Ooh, this is really, ooh, see, the devil, it lives in the details, y'all. Wow. Okay. So a big thing that is always kind of argued about in this trial is force, fraud, and coercion, right? And we've also been hearing all we got to do is get one juror to disagree. Just only one juror. You got a hung jury. It's a mistrial. Diddy walks. He don't walk. He got to stay in jail. But this is saying, Your Honor, first of all, I don't even know why y'all are saying this unanimity thing, because we haven't even been able to find a single case where this is the instruction given. Okay. It's going to confuse people. But if you must give a unanimity instruction, you need to make it clear that the unanimity means that it is unanimous. Like the whole jury has to agree. But this requirement of unanimousness is not needed for means. It's only needed for actual elements of crimes. And that might sound like Greek to you, but that is force, fraud, and coercion is one of the means. One of the means is force. Another means is fraud. By whatever means necessary, you get your ST, right? Force or fraud or coercion. The jurors do not have to agree that there was force. Some could think there was force. Some could think there was fraud. Some could think there was coercion. The unanimity requirement for jurors is not all of them have to think Jane was forced. That is news to me, and I think it makes the government's case a lot easier to prove. Even if they think, coerced, fraud, force, trickery, deceit. These are means. The jurors don't have to agree on the means. They only have to agree on the elements. Oh man, I did not know that. Collecting cases holding that fraud, force, or coercion are means of accomplishing trafficking. These are not elements. So we're talking about elements. We're also talking about means, and means are force, fraud, and coercion. Now they do have to agree on all the elements. So we'll get into what those are, but let's just look at the government's proposed jury instruction. For counts 2 and counts 4. Now, this is what they're about to be arguing about with each other in court in 8 minutes. Okay, so now I feel like we're at least a little bit caught up as to what's actually, going on and what they're going to be arguing about. I mean, a little bit, definitely more than before. I read through this with y'all. Counts 2 and 4, this is their proposed instruction. The government, so this would be what they want to put as the judge's script for this. The government has argued that Diddy, Mr. Combs, committed ST with respect to Cassie for count 2 or Jane for count 4. And this happened over a year's long period. To find the defendant guilty of these counts, this is the judge reading to the jury. And again, this is proposed. The judge would say, to find the defendant guilty of these counts, you must be unanimous that the government proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the charge with respect. And what's the charge? Trafficking. Has the charge been dropped? Say it all together with me. No, the charge has not been dropped. Look, the charge is sitting right there. Sitting right there. Okay. To find Diddy guilty of these counts, you must be unanimous that the government proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the charge with respect to at least one specific instance. At least one. So some of the jurors could think 5 instances happened, and some of the jurors could think it was just one time. They were able to prove it once. They don't have to agree on all the times. Just one. Look, at least one specific instance within the period of the charged conduct. As to that specific instance of trafficking, you must agree that all the elements were met beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, elements. But, this is what they want added right here, but you need not agree as to the way in which the elements are satisfied. So he did it by any means necessary, the way in which, this is the means. And you don't have to agree to all the details of the instance. I think this is a good jury instruction. I like this because I didn't know this and it is confusing. You do not have to agree as to the way. You don't have to all agree that Jane was forced. You don't have to all agree that Jane was defrauded or coerced. You don't have to agree to every detail. Was she telling the truth about this? Was he telling were they telling the who knows? You just have to look at the elements. Okay, and then their other proposed instructions. So they have counts 2 and 4 and counts 3 and 5. So there's 5 counts, I think. I actually don't know. Scratch that. I don't know how many counts it is. Counts 3 and 5, this is the government's proposed instruction. The government, this will be what the judge would read off the script to the jury. The government has argued that the defendant, that's Diddy, violated federal laws regarding transportation to engage in institution, right? I didn't want to cross through it. The government has argued, this would be the judge reading to the jury, that Diddy violated federal laws regarding transportation to engage in institution. This was with respect to Cassie, among others, for count 3, and with respect to Jane and the other hotel, S workers, for count 5. And this happened over a year's long period. To find Mr. Combs guilty on these counts, you must be unanimous that the government proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the what? Elements of the what? Charge with respect to at least one specific instance of transportation to engage in institution within that period. And I think they're going to prove this is their easiest, I think. At least one time, Diddy, at least one instance of transportation to engage in institution. As to that specific instance of transportation to engage, I did know that. Okay, wait, hold on. Earlier, I just got you in it. Earlier, I think I said I thought that you had to do a commercial S act for it to be S trafficking. I think I did actually know that. I thought you had to have a commercial S act for institution. Maybe I just got a little, I think I did know that. Okay. Either way, it's all clear to me now. The institution charge is the one where it's like there had to be a commercial S act. And I do think this is what I've been saying. The S trafficking one, there doesn't have to be a commercial S act. That I think is the difference. Okay, anyway, this is their proposed instruction. So let me go back one sentence just so we can. This is their instructions for counts 3 and 5. This is the institution one. Okay, this one is S trafficking and this one is institution. Okay, so this is the S trafficking instruction that they want. We're talking about the institution one right now. Government has argued that Diddy violated federal laws regarding transportation of people to engage in prostitution with respect to Cassie, among others, for count 3, and with respect to Jane, among others, for count 5. This happened over a year's long period. Now, to find Diddy guilty on these counts, you must be unanimous that the government proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the charge with respect to at least one specific instance. So they only have to come together and agree that the government proved all the elements of institution or transportation to engage in institution with respect to at least one instance of this. Of all the instances we heard about, the government only has to prove to the jury, and they all have to agree on one. As to that specific instance of transportation to engage in institution, you must agree that all elements were met beyond a reasonable doubt, but you do not have to agree as to the way in which the elements were satisfied or all the details of the instance. To the extent that the court has questions about certain of these edits, the government is available to answer questions at the conference. Wow. What are y'all thinking about that? What are y'all thinking about that? Thank you, Bianca, for becoming a member. Thank you, New Life Plan, for the $5 super chat here for the real news and commentary. I mean, am I missing it? Did they file a drop in the charges and I just didn't see it? Thank you for that $5. Thank you, Alexis, for the $4.99 super chat. Busby, I saw that on his Instagram, girl. Did y'all know Busby filed another new 3 cases against Diddy yesterday? Very strange, very interesting. I'm going to have to look it up. Thank you for that $4.99. Thank you, Only One Joy, for the $5 super chat. It's like TMZ narratives are for sale. Thanks for the clarity, BJ. Get them, boys. I stand with the feds on this one. They got us standing with the feds. Thank you for that $5. Thank you, New Life Plan, so much for that $10 super sticker. Thank you, Sarah. Dean for the $9.99. BJ, if you go to Inner City Press, he responded, yes. I think I did already read that, but we are going to head over there shortly. Thank you for that $9.99. Thanks so much to Lady J for the £5. UK doesn't have Cash App. BJ, please split this with Diamond Rainbow. Oh, okay. I'll see what I can do, but I do have their stuff linked down there. If y'all can't donate there, I would say I don't really want to be put in the like splitting stuff. It kind of makes stuff complicated, but I'll make sure that gets to her. But in the future, I'll have to figure something else out. If maybe she has another link I could put down there in addition. Thank you for that. $2.50. Thank you, B, the goddess, for the $5 super chat. Thank you for explaining, because I was this morning. I mean, me too. I felt like I was being gaslit. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Thanks so much, Keish, for the $4.99. Several outlets have reported what the feds drop, the state will pick up. I mean, I'm highly doubtful, Keish, because all this stuff has statutes of limitations. So I could be missing it. But didn't the state of California, LAPD, or whoever it was already say like, oh, wish we could do something about that Intercontinental Hotel stuff, but we just can't. I think all the statutes of limitations have expired, but maybe not. I mean, maybe somehow somebody can get Diddy for the arson charge. I hope so. Y'all listen, I hope I'm wrong. I am a bit cynical, I'm a bit cynical at this point, but I hope so. I hope that people face consequences for their actions if they need to, and all that. So, but that's very interesting that people are saying this, the state's going to pick stuff up. And I hope they do. I hope there's something I'm missing. Thanks so much, Strange Currencies, for the 30,000 IDR super sticker. Thank you, Sarah, for the $4.99 super sticker. Shout out to the mods. Thank you so much, Sarah DCCR, for the $9.99. Thank you, mods. Thank you, Donna W, for the $5 super chat. Thank you for being a source of truth. Y'all, I mean, I'm trying. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's like, I feel like I'm like in one of those CIA experiments where they put a piece of paper up and there's like 4 lines that's the same length, or 3 lines same length, and then there's one real long one, and it's like, which one's the shortest one? And everyone picks the long one, and it's like, that's how I felt this morning waking up, everybody saying charges are dropped. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not doing it. No, that's the line is longer. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to say something happened that is clearly not, there's no evidence that anything was dropped. There's just none. It's just Harvey Levin saying it. Or, excuse me, TMZ, which I just equate with him because of Mark Garagos. But I mean, who knows who wrote that article? I felt like I was in one of those things. Thanks so much, Unalive Monroe, becoming a member. Thanks so much, Lady J. BJ, you're a real one. Keep doing the Lord's work. Thank you so much for that £2. Thanks so much, Alice, for the $5 super chat. Hitting J. YouTube wouldn't let me type her name. Forcing entertainer from that one night. That's ST, right? That they're trying to say that it is, Alice. Yes, they're trying to say that it is. Thank you so much for that $5 super chat. Thank you, Lucci Lou, for the $4.99. The best content since YouTube was created. Thanks for the real deal, cousin. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. Here's that $4.99. Thank you, Katie Lee, for the $4.99. Thanks for your coverage. You also look super cute today. Thank you. I love that pink hair. I kind of want to do a little pink hair moment. I've always wanted to. Thanks so much, Pamela Fairbanks, for the $4.99 super sticker. Thank you, Strange Currencies, for the 20,000 IDR. Wish I could follow more. It's midnight here. Thanks so much. Shout out to you. Thank you for following as much as you can. Thank you, Mosaic Maria, for the $2 super chat. And thank you, Yvonne M, for the $1.99 super chat. So let me go to Inner City Press now. And let's see if anything has occurred. Poor Inner City Press out here fighting the fake news on his own. No, wait, why isn't it up? Hold on. No, all charges were not dropped. U.S. has removed instructions on attempted kidnapping under California and New York law. No longer plans to proceed on these theories of liability. They were banning our guy from the UN. So someone asked Inner City Press, predict a long day Thursday? Is it 4 hours each? He said more, I think. Yesterday, the assistant U.S. attorney said she doesn't expect the jury to begin deliberating until Monday. Yet, they want both Thursday and Friday to be 9 to 5 p.m. The legal charge to the jury won't take 8 hours, nor 6, nor even 4. So it's looking like the closing statements are going to be very long, and they may spill over back into Friday. Okay, so someone said, will Diddy's case still meet at 2 today? He said, that's what they're still saying. I'm ready to live tweet it. If they don't get the charge conference done today, then they can't have closing arguments tomorrow because the arguments are tailored to the final jury instructions. Okay, let me go to just Diddy trial live and see. Girl, what? Hold on. None of our usual suspects are reporting. USA Today, but they're never actually doing anything live. They just have this little live ticker to make it seem live, but it's like old news. Look, drops charges. It's just all this fake news. They're not dropping charges, but of course, TMZ exclusive. It's aggravating. Okay. See what I mean? Like nothing's. I'm seeing if anything else was filed. No. Okay, yeah. Someone said check the Diddy docket. Good idea. Diddy and Fat Joe plaintiff accuser Tyrone Blackburn arrested in New York? You lying. You lying. Oh, no, you lying. Y'all. Okay. Oh, my God. I'm going to have to clip this part out and make it its own video. Y'all, this just came out 9:45 this morning. Lawyer suing Fat Joe. Arrested. Where is Rabbit? For allegedly mowing down Fat Joe's process server. Tyrone Blackburn got arrested. That's him? I did not know that's what he looks like. I mean, I've seen pictures of him. He's just, I don't think I would have recognized him. More drama in the Fat Joe civil case. His accuser's attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, just got arrested for mowing down a process server with his car in New York City. A rep for the New York Police Department tells us that Tyrone Blackburn was taken into custody this morning and booked for assault. Girl, cops say it all started the night of May 12th when Tyrone Blackburn got into his vehicle as a 66-year-old messenger was serving him a complaint in the Fat Joe case. Okay. So y'all should know there are 2 Fat Joe lawsuits going on between this T.A. Dixon guy. Fat Joe actually sued him first for defamation. Then he sued Fat Joe back. It's not even a countersuit. It's like a totally different new suit. But Tyrone Blackburn was approached by Fat Joe's lawyer all the way back in May trying to serve him. He allegedly slammed his car into reverse and backed up, hitting the process server in the leg. Now, what I will say though, y'all, is they will send these process servers and they are scary looking and they are deranged and unhinged looking and you don't know why they're there. They won't tell you who they're there on the behalf of. They have these mystery boxes full of stuff and you're like, if I'm Tyrone Blackburn, I'm going to need some more information before I just take a mystery box from somebody. I mean, I'm not even Tyrone Blackburn and I personally ain't going to answer my door. No, I got a sign on my door that says exactly how you can serve my lawyers. Yes, I do. I ain't coming to the door. I got lawyers to do that. So here's the picture. Here's the email. Here's the number. Figure it out. I ain't coming to the door. So I don't know, and we just learned earlier today in this very video, stuff TMZ posts. Sometimes, you can't fully really think it's, you can't fully trust that it's really, accurate or necessarily true, but it's fun. It's fun to read. Allegedly, Tyrone Blackburn slammed his car into reverse. Now, this happened all the way back last month. Like the middle of last month, and we all the way in the end of this month now. The alleged victim, reported the incident to police. Tyrone Blackburn's arrest stems from a messy legal matter involving Fat Joe and Fat Joe's and Fat Joe's attorney, powerhouse attorney, Joe Tacopina. And that's Wendy Williams' new lawyer, this guy right here. I don't want to run into that on a dark alley. I tell you, I'm scared. Not really scared. I'm not scared. God's favorite isn't really scared or anything. It's just kind of for comedic effect. But he is a powerhouse. Like, listen. I got to say, Tyrone Blackburn has some nerve. I got to give it to him. He has nothing if not bold, unmitigated audacity. He will sue anybody. He don't care. He'll be going up against Joe Tacopina, Mark Agnifilo, Teeny Garagos, Mark Garagos, and Brian Steele, and Alex Spiro all at the same time. Something I don't want to do. Something I could not do. So, I mean, I got to give him that at least. But that's Fat Joe's lawyer right there. Okay, so Joe Tacopina is talking to TMZ. He told TMZ today that, the article came out today. I don't know when he told it to him, that Tyrone Blackburn sent a demand letter on the behalf of Terrence Dixon, this Fat Joe accuser, requesting $3 million for allegedly co-writing music with Fat Joe. But Fat Joe's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, says they blew off the letter. But then Tyrone Blackburn followed up with another demand letter claiming Fat Joe was messing around with minors. So he increased the ante, he upped the ante. Joe Tacopina says they wanted to get out ahead of the situation, so they just filed a lawsuit alleging defamation and extortion. That is when Joe Tacopina and Fat Joe hired the messenger. This is the process server to serve the complaint to Tyrone Blackburn. Is that Jay-Z? But no. Now, T.A. Dixon, is it Terrence? I lost his name. That's Tyrone Blackburn. I guess he was out there at court. So he got arrested today for the May 12th incident. So they must have knew he was going to be at court. They wanted to mess with him at Diddy court, I bet. He has since filed his own. So T.A. Dixon has since filed his own $20 million lawsuit against Fat Joe, accusing him of being a PDF file. Now, even if he is a PDF file, I don't think that T.A. Dixon has any grounds to sue over it. I mean, he would have to be the minor. He would have to be the victim. Like, you have to have grounds to sue someone. I don't think you can sue someone for assaulting minors in a civil court. I think you just have to report it to the police. And it begs the question why he never did. Maybe he did. We've reached out to Blackburn. So far, no word back. Yeah, because he just got arrested. He probably was in the back of the cop car when he said it, when they reached out. That's crazy. Okay, wait. Let's go back to the Diddy docket because that's who had posted it. Cops say it all started on the night of May 12th when Blackburn got into his vehicle. Okay, so wait, previously. Okay, so it's like a public drama battle has already been waging. Look, this was weeks ago. Tyrone Blackburn posted this at Joe Tacopina. I've been emailing you for several days trying to get an answer for my invitation to meet with Homeland Security and federal prosecutors so you can present your claim for extortion against my client and me. And I can present my claim for RICO and trafficking against your client, Fat Joe. Assuming you missed my last 3 emails, I figured I'd try to reach you here. It's mind-boggling that you are willing to tell TMZ that my client and I are attempting to extort Fat Joe, but you're not willing to accept my invitation to meet with federal prosecutors and investigators. One would think that if your client is being extorted, you would seize the opportunity to present the extortion attempt to law enforcement. That was a bit of a checkmate. Look, I'm trying to cover these emails up, but this is a public, post. Good morning, Joe. I'm following up on my previous email. This is from May 1st, almost 2 months ago. What day would you like to meet me at the Southern District of New York so you can present your case for extortion and I can present my case for RICO? We can have a conversation with federal prosecutors and Homeland Security investigators. I plan to fly in from Florida for the start of the Diddy trial. But I'm willing to come today if you want to meet with the Southern District of New York and the Homeland Security tomorrow. The latest flight to New York is 8:40 p.m. Let me know. Okay. So this has been ongoing. Tyrone Blackburn versus Joe Tacopina, round 1. So this is Tyrone Blackburn's Instagram post about Joe Tacopina. Joe Tacopina, you ran and filed a baseless lawsuit against my client and me in the Southern District of New York alleging defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. This was an attempt to get ahead of the forthcoming lawsuit against your client, Fat Joe. No matter how hard you try to deflect and cherry pick emails and conversations, your client has a lot of explaining to do. I invited you to meet me with the Southern District of New York prosecutors, but you have yet to respond. You can bring your baseless accusation of extortion, and I'll bring the 19-minute audio recording of your client's felonious henchman, Pistol Pete, soliciting a former member of Terror Squad to lure my client, T.A. Dixon, to a specific location for Pistol Pete and his thugs to pound him out. Your client, Fat Joe, ordered a hit job against my client. Pistol Pete also discusses how he had to run down on Tony Yayo, a member of Brands, due to some feud with 50 Cent and run up into clubs and attack other victims. Your client should also prepare to answer questions surrounding 2 additional recordings where 2 females discuss your client's disgusting pattern of grooming and sleeping with 16-year-old children. Now, these are all allegations until, proven. So the incident allegedly happened in May. The messenger they hired, but he's getting arrested today, shortly after he sued Rock Nation. Interesting. Exactly. Demi Lovato's MMA fighter X has died? Girl, what? Okay, let me look up Inner City Press. Okay. U.S. versus Diddy, day 30, the charge conference after U.S. letter said some theories of liability were no longer being pursued. Will live tweet thread below. So that was just tweeted. So the thread has started, but I'm going to look up Tyrone Blackburn arrest. I think they did it out in front of the Diddy trial on purpose. I think that they did it on purpose. Billboard's posting about it. Tyrone Blackburn. Okay, so lawyer, this is Billboard. Lawyer for Fat Joe's ex hype man arrested after allegedly hitting rapper's process server with car. Look, listen, nobody better not be behind my car because I'm backing up too. If I say move, you better move. Just move, and you, especially if you're on my property. But I don't know where he was. The attorney Tyrone Blackburn is bringing salacious racketeering, so you can kind of see what side Billboard's on. Racketeering claims against Fat Joe, and also tried to involve UMG and Lucian Grange in a case against Diddy last year. So you can tell who these people are working for, right? How dare? I mean, in my opinion, I don't know. I don't have their books and records, obviously. A lawyer who brought shocking racketeering claims against Fat Joe and previously tried to drag Universal Music Group. Anytime they're saying tried to drag, my antennas goes off because that's the language that all the AstroTurf bots used about me, who dragged J-Lo into, who dragged J-Lo, dragged her into, like drag. They all had that in the title. Previously tried to drag UMG into Diddy litigation chaos. He's now been arrested for allegedly hitting Fat Joe's process server with his car. Attorney Tyrone Blackburn was taken into custody this morning in Brooklyn on allegations of assault. A New York Police Department spokesperson confirmed to Billboard. Representatives for Fat Joe say the arrest stems from an incident in which Blackburn allegedly struck the rapper's process server with his car in a failed attempt to avoid being served with paperwork for a lawsuit. Tyrone Blackburn's arrest comes at no surprise to me. It's just the latest example of his malicious and manipulative pattern of misconduct finally coming to light, said Joe Tacopina, who probably called the cops, let's be honest. Quote, today's arrest is just the first step, but I'm confident that my client's name will be cleared from all these falsehoods and Blackburn will be brought to justice once and for all. Blackburn did not immediately return a request for comment, probably because he's up at the jail. It wasn't immediately clear what the next steps will be now that he's been taken into police custody. The attorney represents former Fat Joe hype man Terrence T.A. Dixon, who sued Fat Joe last week, claiming he was forced to work without pay while being subjected to psychological manipulation and exposed to the trafficking of underage girls and other sexual misconduct. Fat Joe, for his side of things, has strenuously denied the allegations. And before T.A. Dixon even filed his lawsuit, the rapper, Fat Joe, launched a lawsuit of his own, accusing both the ex-hype man and Tyrone Blackburn, that attorney, of extortion. Fat Joe's process servers were allegedly attempting to give Blackburn the paperwork for that case when he allegedly hit the process server with the car. The lawsuit that Tyrone is bringing against Fat Joe frames Fat Joe's activities as a wide-ranging criminal enterprise falling under the RICO Act, the federal RICO statute often used in cases against mobsters and substance cartels. Tyrone already unsuccessfully tried to lob similar RICO claims last year in his assault lawsuit he brought on behalf of Lil Rod Jones. The case originally accused UMG, that's Universal Music Group, and its CEO, Lucian Grange, rhymes with strange, of participating in Diddy's racketeering conspiracy, but Tyrone Blackburn later dropped those claims amid fierce opposition from UMG. Blackburn admitted in a sworn declaration that there had been no legal basis for dragging UMG and Grange into the situation. The attorney's litigation tactics have been criticized by several judges handling his cases. One federal judge referred Blackburn for disciplinary proceedings last year, saying he was using the court system to garner media attention, embarrass defendants with salacious allegations, and pressure defendants to settle quickly. Y'all, I want to see if anything got filed in the Fat Joe case. Let's check the inner city press thing, though. Uh-oh. So we have an update. This charge conference was supposed to be at noon, then moved to 2 p.m. Still not begun yet as of 2:20 p.m. Diddy is sitting at the defense table. Next to him, his lawyer, Xavier Donaldson, speaks to the judge. To the judge's courtroom deputy. And Inner City Press is reporting that there is more talk. There's talk of more delay. Okay, I want to go to the Fat Joe lawsuit. This is the Diddy one, so let's just check it. I like to just periodically check it throughout the day. No, nothing new. Okay. What's his name? Shoot. I forgot. Is it Terrell or Terrence? Or I could do the Fat Joe. Cartagena. Gina. Okay, here's one of them. This is the Fat Joe versus... If you're just joining, hi, hello. We're here. We're here just kind of waiting for the Diddy thing to start up. It still hasn't started. So we're kind of looking into the Fat Joe stuff. Tyrone Blackburn was just arrested apparently in New York this morning. But look, first letter. So he filed a memo 2 days ago, the day before yesterday. Tyrone Blackburn filed a very long motion to dismiss. Well, not that long, actually, considering how long some of these things are. Let me just save it. It's 23 pages. Now, this is the Fat Joe versus T.A. Dixon. This one was filed first. Everybody. I don't know it already. I'll just do this. This was just filed 2 days ago. Tyrone Blackburn has filed a motion to dismiss Fat Joe's lawsuit against this T.A. Dixon, but Tyrone Blackburn got arrested just now. Apparently, according to TMZ, which, girl, take it with a grain of salt. Okay. I'm just saving this. Y'all know I don't want to have another a breakdown moment where I'm crying over my Pacer bill. No promises. Anything's possible. But okay, so answer, notice of appearance, Tyrone Blackburn. Letter addressed to the judge. Let me see what this is. There's a few things filed 2 days ago on Monday. We represent Terrence Dixon. Defendant improperly attempts to collapse human trafficking claims into his defamation narrative. So I guess Tyrone Blackburn, maybe. I mean, excuse me, Fat Joe maybe is trying to consolidate these cases. I'll have to look through the filings a little more. Like I told y'all, I really haven't had time to get really into all this stuff too much. I have the complaints. I've kind of briefly looked over them, but let me see if there's been anything filed in that other one. I do think the cases should be consolidated. So here's he filed against Fat Joe. I just want to see if anything new has been filed here. Motion to dismiss was filed by Rock Nation the day before yesterday. So stuff's flying. Stuff is flying in this case. This is Terrence Dixon. Now, interestingly, Reed Smith is representing, Alex Spiro is representing Rock Nation. Dun, dun, dun. Girl, the gang is all here. So Reed Smith allegedly has some type of connection with Rock Nation and Desiree Perez and all them in the DeMore Hadley case. That's Reed Smith. It's a law firm. And then Reed Smith is involved in this Fat Joe case. And Rock Nation also got sued by Tyrone Blackburn, who's now been arrested this morning. Y'all, this is crazy. This is crazy. Alex Spiro. Dun, dun, dun. Listen, Alex Spiro probably going to hell. He's probably going to hell. But I would rather hire him than be on his bad side. He's like the one. I kind of feel like he's like the final lawyer boss. Like I'm more kind of like not trying to tangle with him more than Joe Tacopino, more than Mark Agnifilo. And these people, represent death penalty clients. I mean, or Mark Agnifilo, I don't know, maybe Tacopino. I just feel like all of them are kind of clowny, and Alex Spiro is more like assassiny. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a compliment, but no, let the record reflect. I ain't scared of nothing and nobody, but he's the one I would want to, if I had a list of ones I would want to tangle with, he would not be at the top. And I'm certain I'm not at the top of his either. I'm certain, but he seems to be able to go all the full way, if you know what I mean. I want to see the arrest report. I want to see more information on Tyrone. Let's go back to Inner City Press. Nothing, no updates. The charges were not dropped. I'm so freaking sick of seeing people say that. Okay, let me see if I can find like any further information. Let's see. Tyrone Blackburn arrest report. I want to know who called 911. I want the 911 call. Oh, there's a filing against Cassie. Is that true? Hold on. I shouldn't even said that out loud. Sometimes there's just be fake news in here and then I say it and people think it's real. Hold on. Let me look. Somebody said check Diddy docket. Ooh. Oh. Please. Okay, it got dismissed. There was a case filed by someone named Sharon Brown on behalf of herself, the USA, Diddy, and musicians who don't have relations for their career. She sued Cassie and all false accusers of Diddy who willingly participated or were sugar babies looking for a sugar daddy. The lawsuit has been dismissed as frivolous. Girl. No, I ain't reading all that. Sorry. It's been dismissed though. Let's see. Very interesting thread here. Very interesting. Let me check on Demore on Demore's case. I want to see what that judge in that case is going to decide about the gag order, because I know there's like another case that Rock Nation recently was able to get like a YouTuber gag ordered, Milagro something. No, nothing new there. Okay. So should we read the Rock Nation? Yeah, when was the 911 call? I need someone to FOIA request the 911 call if you don't mind. I mean, let's see when he was arrested. Like when exactly and where exactly. Reportedly arrested Wednesday morning in connection with alleged assault involving a process server. TMZ citing the New York Police Department, Blackburn is accused of striking a process server with his car during a May incident causing minor injuries. Fat Joe's legal team claims the act was intentional to evade being served court papers. Tyrone Blackburn says a central role in Dixon's lawsuit, which accuses the Bronx rapper Fat Joe of defamation, unpaid compensation, and breach of trust. Dixon, once part of Fat Joe's entourage, claims to have worked as a hype man, lyricist, background vocalist, and security detail. His lawsuit followed a prior defamation and extortion suit filed by Fat Joe against Dixon and Blackburn. So Fat Joe's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, this is Fat Joe's lawyer, called Blackburn's arrest unsurprising. I wonder why. Probably because he was expecting it. This is just another chapter in his pattern of misconduct. He has used the legal system as a weapon that ends now. Tacopina added that Fat Joe's earlier lawsuit was filed to expose what he called a coordinated effort to damage his client's name. They set out to destroy his reputation with lies. This arrest is just the start. We're confident the truth will come out. Okay. I'm going to... Oh, I didn't know YouTubers were getting gag orders. Who was getting a gag order? Oh, you mean Milagro. Hold on. I'm going to find that Rock Nation. Oh, so it was April. It was April that Fat Joe sued, what's his name? Terrence Dixon. So where's the other one? It's not showing me that one now. I want to save it in my cases. There, that one. Fat Joe versus T.A. Dixon. So that one, I'll have it saved. And then... What the hell? I know I just saw that case. Oh, he sued PayPal before? Okay, well, now the case is not coming up, so that's cute. Love when that happens. Well, that's aggravating. No, I don't know. Okay, so let's go back to Inner City Press. What's this one I say that I blocked? Hold on. Someone said, let's go, Matthew. He said, I'd like to go. But there's nothing to report right now. Just Diddy sitting and his lawyers, Brian Steele and Xavier Donaldson, looking at a computer. I'm considering going to go check in on another case. Well, that's aggravating. Let me look for some other things. Hold on. Has it been updated? Just got arrested for allegedly mowing down a process server. Taken into custody this morning and booked for assault. Brooklyn, they said. Is that picture from today or is that an old picture? Oh, here. Cops say it all started May 12th when Blackburn got into his vehicle as a 66-year-old messenger was serving him a complaint. He slammed his car in reverse and backed up. His arrest stems from a messy legal matter involving Fat Joe and the rapper's powerhouse attorney, Joe Tacopina. Sent a demand letter on the behalf of Terrence Dixon to Fat Joe requesting $3 million. No word back from Tyrone. Blackburn. Matthew would like to move on to my say. Okay, hold on. Like, I want to see the police report. Fat Joe's legal team issues statement. After Tyrone Blackburn was arrested by authorities for assault in the second degree, a felony charge, when he hit a process server with his vehicle back in April 2025. Fat Joe's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, filed a lawsuit against Tyrone Blackburn and T.A. Dixon, his former hype man, for extortion, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. As the process server arrived to present the paperwork to Tyrone, the lawyer struck the server with his vehicle. While Tyrone Blackburn was ultimately served, the arrest comes as Blackburn's history of corrupt legal practices and unethical conduct has surfaced to the forefront. Okay, this is a quote. Tyrone Blackburn's arrest comes as no surprise to me, said Joe Tacopina. It's just the latest example of his malicious and manipulative pattern of misconduct. How about that alliteration? Finally coming to light. Blackburn is an embarrassment to the legal profession, and it is a disgrace watching him use the court system to shield his extortion tactics. This is exactly why Fat Joe proactively sued Tyrone Blackburn and his client Terrence Dixon in April because he knew they intended to try to destroy his reputation by peddling salacious lies. Today's arrest is just the first step, but I'm confident that my client's name will be cleared from all these falsehoods and Blackburn will be brought to justice once and for all. Fat Joe's lawsuit in April 2025 explained how Tyrone Blackburn and Terrence Dixon sent a written demand letter to him in March 2025 seeking money for being a ghostwriter and an uncredited vocalist on some of Fat Joe's songs as part of their extortion scheme. According to the lawsuit, Fat Joe disregarded these fraudulent demands, and Tyrone Blackburn and Terrence Dixon collectively escalated their extortion plan. This is according to the lawsuit. On April 21st, 2025, they sent a follow-up demand letter to Fat Joe and his lawyer threatening to file a lawsuit against him for not just for unpaid wages and other compensation, but also, and with utter disregard for truth and decency, false and outrageous allegations that about Fat Joe that have absolutely nothing to do with any purported unpaid wages, including unspeakable acts such as statutory R, forced labor, ST, and fraud. When a warrant was issued for Blackburn's arrest on Thursday, we're getting some tea. So a warrant was issued for his arrest almost a week ago. Today's Wednesday. The lawyer and Dixon followed through on their alleged extortion plan and filed a retaliatory. So on the same day that the lawsuit was filed against Fat Joe and them, that's interesting. The same day that the lawsuit was filed against Fat Joe, alleging all those crazy things, is the same day an arrest warrant was issued against Tyrone Blackburn. New York State judges have also become aware of Blackburn's, quote, unethical legal tactics. In April last year, Judge Denise Cote of the Southern District of New York referred him to the grievance committee for the state's federal court district in an order outlining he improperly files cases in federal court to garner media attention, embarrass defendants with his salacious allegations, and pressure the defendants to settle quickly. In March this year, Judge Paul Oetken also admonished Tyrone Blackburn for his, quote, misconduct, issuing an order that said Blackburn's filings are replete with inaccurate statements of law and full of similar irrelevant insults, misstatements, and exaggerations. Y'all. Reese said, yeah, Tyrone and TA have 29 minutes of audio too. Oh my God. Okay, let's go back to Inner City Press and see if anything's going to happen today. He might have went to do another case. Now who knows what's going on. Not a good look, I know. I don't think he got arrested there. That was like last month he sent that email. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Striking processor accused of assault. I don't know. I don't know what to. Let's go Diddy. Trial live. Nobody's live. Nobody's telling us anything. Let's go to. I guess let's go to Diddy's like actual case and see. I don't know. I can look at the docket or something like of the what it's scheduled, what time it's scheduled for. Okay, what am I? Let's see, deadlines, hearings. Six. Okay, let's see. Redaction request. Redaction request. Warner Brothers. Transcripts. Do you see anything that's like hearing? No. $9.18, release of transcript. What is this? Why does it say Warner Brothers Discovery all over everything? This is the Diddy federal case, right? Why do they all say Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. and Miss Doe and interested news organizations? Maybe Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. Oh, maybe they're because they were making that documentary and they've been requesting the transcripts for it. I don't know. What? I don't know what to do, y'all. I mean, the thing was supposed to start at noon. Then we waited on here till 2. Now it's 2:51. Looks like Intercity Press done abandoned ship. So what do I do? Y'all, nothing's happening. Thanks so much, Soccer Chick, for the $5 super chat. Just so you know, I am not a licensed attorney. I am a lawyer. I do have the JD, but I voluntarily withdrew from the bar. As an attorney, I really appreciate you explaining what jury instructions are and how they work. Great job on the importance of the elements. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Soccer Chick. Thank you so much, The Smiths, for the $19.99 super chat. My mama is a Blanchard. Probably my cousin. Thank you for always being a truth seeker and teller. Cousin. Thank you so much for that, $19.99. Thank you, Deborah Vaughn, for the $20 super chat. Just a little something for your diligent hard work during this marathon. Thank you so much for that, Deborah. Thank you, Gina Montanaro, for the $4.99 super chat. Aw, thank you so much, Diamond Rainbow, for the $5 super chat. Just wanted everyone to know BJ was the first person to donate to the Kitty Fund. Yes, I have donated. Thank you to Kate for the $5 super chat. Girl, I didn't know Lou Taylor was from my city. We don't claim her. Free Brittany. Thank you, cousin, for the debauched Diddy coverage. Thank you so much for that $5 super chat. Thank you, 546 Giraffe Network, for the $3.99 super chat. We animated you in a recent video on our channel. Aw, cute. Thanks so much for the $3.99 super chat. Thanks so much, Sandra Deluz, for the €50 oilo. Much love from your cousin in the Netherlands, Rotterdam. You're doing amazing. Thank you so much. Shout out to the Netherlands. Shout out to the Netherlands cousins. Thank you so much, Sandra, for that €50. That's a very generous. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lauren 518, for the $2 super sticker. And to Tina Bailey, thank you so much for the $3 super sticker. So, like, I don't know, girl. Like, what do I do? We have no news now coming out of the court. Rap battle, please. I don't want to put anyone to shame. I don't want to embarrass anybody with my skills, okay? Oh, there's 3 new cases against Diddy. I did see that. Maybe I can like it's too hot to go outside, I know. Okay, let me go to Diddy docket and see the new Diddy cases. Maybe we can look at one of those or something. Cause I feel like as soon as I get off of here, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna go, and it's gonna be like, oh, court started. Cause I mean, it is already 3:00. They don't even have that much more time. Okay. This I already did see this morning on Busby's Instagram account. 3 new civil lawsuits have been filed against Diddy in Los Angeles Superior Court by Tony Busby. He says there's going to be more to come. Okay, here's the post. Busby said, in response to repeated inquiries, look, now he's having to kind of cover his behind because, you know, he's also another one like Tyrone Blackburn that's trying to like defend his license everywhere to and fro. In response to repeated inquiries, we can confirm that the Busby law firm filed 3 cases against Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs in Los Angeles Superior Court yesterday afternoon. These 3 are part of a number of cases that will be filed in this venue. The first is on behalf of a 25-year-old professional from New York. She is a college graduate and she works in the creative media space. Her case alleges that in 2017, Justin Combs lured her to Los Angeles under false pretenses of making connections in the entertainment and media industry. Instead of doing that, once she was there, she claims she was trapped, drugged, held powerless, and are. The lawsuit maintains that for days she couldn't escape. She couldn't escape for days. She was allegedly repeatedly by Diddy and his crew. The second and third cases, this is Busby's post, are on behalf of 2 male victims. Both were invited to LA Diddy parties. Both were allegedly substanced and assaulted while there. One victim was allegedly assaulted by Diddy himself, and the other was allegedly assaulted as Diddy watched and encouraged and directed the activities. The specific facts are laid out in the public filings. We look forward to pursuing these cases and stand proud to represent the alleged victims in these matters. We have received multiple press calls about Diddy's criminal case. We've generally explained that the case being made by the prosecution is different from the civil claims we have alleged. Right there, they're saying all kind of stuff, that there was stuff that was drugs, there was drinks that were getting, roofied, there was Diddy parties with other celebrities there. This is all the things that have been alleged. Busby said, we generally have already explained that the case being made by the prosecution is very different from the civil claims that we allege. But the facts are strikingly similar. We continue to watch the criminal process unfold as we have watched. We've learned a great deal that confirms what we believe to be a pattern of behavior. And given the testimony and other evidence we've seen, we remain extremely confident in our efforts in the civil courts. Interesting. Wait, I am trying to go to Inner City Press. Yeah, it's been like 30 minutes since he tweeted. Yeah, content creator of the courthouse said that court starts at 2 p.m. today, but it hasn't started. And it's 3. So that was an hour ago. Oh, man. Okay, let's see if I can look up some other breaking Diddy news or something, girl. I mean, what? Nothing going on. I'll have to watch that later. Huh. Okay. So I don't know, girl. I don't know. What is going on in this chat? Nothing's going on right now. I'm about to get off this thing if they don't start doing something soon. I've been on here for 3 hours for nothing. Yeah, I feel like it's 2 courts too. I do too. I absolutely do. I feel like it's 2 courts. Secret society court and public court. And that's mostly just clown. I don't know why there's people in here trying to tell me what to do. I'm deleting them comments. I don't know why what's taking so long either. Let's see. Oh, Rabbits Bunnies are in the chat. Shout out to Rabbits Bunnies. Shout out to the rabbits. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why Rabbit got off. It may be because same reason I'm sitting here thinking, like, what am I doing here? Like, this was supposed to start at noon. Then it was supposed to start at 2. Then it was going to be, now it's 3:03. And it's like, I think Inner City Press done left out the courtroom. He's like, oh, I'm going to go do something else while I'm waiting. But court like ends at 3, doesn't it? So the arguments on these jury instructions haven't even started yet. It's 3:00. This is usually the time they get out of court. I mean, they have gone until 5:00 and until 4:00 on some days, but this seems kind of late to be getting started. Mr. Calling an audible yesterday, Subramanian. What I would like to do, if nobody did it, I want to do a FOIA request for the Tyrone Blackburn 911 call. Like, who called the cops and said, oh, you can come pick him up over here? Oh, now it's supposed to start at 3? Well, it's 3:04. Melissa is saying it's supposed to start at 3 now. No, the jury does not come in at 12 tomorrow. That was today. Today the jury didn't come in, but today it started at 12. So I think the jury comes in tomorrow before 9:00. Before 9:00, and they're going to go all the way through tomorrow till 5. It's going to be 5:00 end time tomorrow, everybody. Apparently, it's going to be starting again up at 3. So it's 3:05 right now. Definitely give it a few more minutes. No, that's not. Yeah, let's just do that. I would like to see those new ones that Busby filed, but you have to like pay every time to run a search over there, and it's like $5 or something. Thank you, Shay, for the $4.99 super chat. Did you see the new lawsuit from Wendy's ex-husband? I saw that it happened. I saw there was buzz about it, but I didn't read the lawsuit. I didn't actually see the lawsuit. Thank you for the $4.99. Let's see if I can. What's his name? Hunter? Is it Kevin or Kelvin? Hold on, I'm looking to see if I can find it. New York. Hold on. I'm looking for that case, but like typed in Kevin Hunter. That's a pretty common name. No. I'll have to look for it later. Patricia said, do I think they're working on a plea deal? No, I do not. I do not think they are. Now, have I been wrong? Could they be? Sure. Both of those things. Ayasha Loya Fine Art said there does seem to be a lot of high profile partiality going on in the Diddy case. Seems like BS to me that he gets a lot of leniency compared to an ordinary defendant. Nobody has an update. No. Nope. Nope. But somebody said that other people were saying that there are apparently people saying it's supposed to start at 3. It is 3:08 right now. So let's see. Let's give it a few. It's been 37 minutes since he tweeted anything. Cousin Andrew said Teeny bored him into a coma. Jean said it does seem he does get leniency, but I think it's because the judge is trying to make the trial appeal proof. Horace Murray said, did the judge ever rule on the acquittal? Not that I know of. Right, exactly. Miss VA girl said, did he already turn down a plea? Right. Yeah, he did. Yes, I have. Kel said, does anyone notice that there are pro Diddy bots out on all channels? Comments today? Yes, I do. TMZ has edited the article now, somebody said. Okay. So I have it up. All I'll do is we'll refresh. Because most recent it said it was it was updated June 25th, 2025, 7:46 a.m. Pacific, which is like 10:46 Eastern. So let's see if they updated. No, at least it's not been indicated here. So I don't think they did update anything. I'm looking just in case. Nope. Nothing new. TMZ hasn't updated since the last I read it, so that's not true. Okay, Diddy Docket said court has started. Thank God. Let me go over there. Oh, man. I do get a little impatient and hangry. Okay. Diddy docket. Oh, no. They want another hour. They want another half hour. Girl, okay. Well, and on that note, I'm going to go take a little lunch break and I'll be back in about an hour. They need another hour. I don't know how long they're going to be there. If they need another, she's saying a half hour. We'll call it an hour. I'll be back at 4:11 and hopefully all their arguments can be done. Maybe they're like doing some negotiating in the back room. Yeah, Diddy Docket is funny. Diddy Docket's like, hold on. Just kidding. They just came out to tell us they need more time. Look, Inner City Press said, okay, 3:07. They're starting up. The judge, sorry for the delays. There was a full-on constitutional challenge. Yeah, that was the one with the statute, but the government took away that argument so they don't have to argue it again. Remember, I told y'all it's all about strategy. Like, why would we want to get all off in the lost in the woods on the constitutional argument when we got you dead to rights on everything else? Could we have another hour? Just kidding. A half hour. The judge said, I'm happy to give you that time. Break until 3:45. All right. I'm going to come back at 4. I'll see y'all then. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation, neither are opinions. And I have a new video out on BJ Investigates if y'all want to go check that out about Adam 22, Grand Mason 16. Also, we have one over there about R. Kelly. Some little R. Kelly updates. So if you need something to watch in the meantime, go to BJ Investigates and I'll see y'all in like an hour. Love you, Minnie K. Bye.